Shadows of Succession Chapter 1. The moment the engines slipped into faster than light, the universe outside the viewport twisted into pale lines of light, stretching like broken strands of silver across a black canvas. To most people, the transition was routine. To Wyatt, it felt like being pulled away from certainty itself. Commander Redford didn't waste time. Inside the quiet hum of FTL travel, he began laying out the truth. Not propaganda, not simplified doctrine. The real structure of power. Wyatt listened in silence, seated stiffly across from the commander in the briefing compartment. He was a commoner, raised on procedures, not politics. Trained to follow orders, not question dynasties. What Redford explained wasn't meant to corrupt him, only to prepare him. The betrayal ran deeper than Wyatt had imagined. Duke Draw's move wasn't impulsive. It wasn't recent. It was calculated, layered, and supported by long-standing agreements that existed far beyond what even the mid-level nobles knew. Influence hidden behind bureaucracy. Loyalty bought quietly. Entire houses compromised years before anyone dared ask why. By the time Redford finished, Wyatt understood one thing clearly. This wasn't a dispute. This was a succession war waiting to ignite. When the ship decelerated out of FTL, Wyatt was jolted back into the present. The stars snapped back into place, sharp and cold, revealing a formation of ships waiting for them. 21 vessels. Not a fleet, not even close. But every one of them armed, shielded, and positioned with precision. They formed a defensive shell around a single massive cruiser at the center, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements, while still maintaining a polished elegance that spoke of influence rather than excess. That's it, Wyatt thought. The heart of it. He guided his outdated transport toward the hangar, feeling painfully aware of how small and unimpressive his ship looked beside the royal yacht and the flagship's open bay. When he disembarked, no one even glanced at him. Until Redford stepped out. The change was immediate. Every officer in sight snapped to attention. Salutes echoed through the hangar like a synchronized reflex. Wyatt finally saw the commander properly taller than he'd expected. Posture rigid, uniform immaculate in a way only the truly powerful could afford to maintain. Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples, Redford said loudly, not for ceremony but for record. Follow me, Wyatt obeyed without question. The corridors beyond the hangar were immaculate, clean, quiet, designed to remind anyone walking them exactly where they stood in the hierarchy. Wyatt kept his face neutral as his thoughts wandered. He had dreamed of serving aboard a ship like this as a child. Not commanding it, he knew better than that, but simply belonging to something greater. That dream had always felt unattainable. Now somehow he was inside it. On the bridge, the air shifted subtly. Officers manned their stations, but all attention centered on a single man wearing a blue suit trimmed with gold. A cape bearing the royal crest hung from his shoulders without a hint of vanity, only authority. The prince. Wyatt had seen him in broadcasts, carefully crafted and endlessly polished. In person he was different, calmer, sharper. His violet eyes carried a quiet intensity, not arrogance. Report, the prince said. Redford did so quickly and cleanly. The attack, the pursuit, Wyatt's intervention. When Redford finished, the prince turned his gaze on Wyatt alone. Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples. Wyatt's spine locked instantly. Your actions saved loyal subjects of this principality, the prince said evenly. And members of my family. For half a second, Wyatt genuinely wondered if he was unconscious. My prince, Wyatt replied, voice steady through sheer will. I did what was required of me. Nothing more. A faint smirk crossed the prince's face. Do not diminish your actions, he said. Duty does not lessen bravery. Then the words that reshaped Wyatt's life fell into place. As of this moment, the prince declared, you are promoted to lieutenant. The bridge went silent. Wyatt's mind went blank. He was a commoner. Promotions like that didn't happen, not like this. Before he could speak, the prince continued. These are not normal times. Loyalty will be rewarded. Wyatt felt the weight settle on him then, not pride, not joy, but responsibility. A commoner pulled upward not by ambition, but by circumstance. As Redford guided him away toward his new quarters, one truth echoed relentlessly inside Wyatt's mind. He hadn't chosen a side. But the war had chosen him. The door to Wyatt's new quarters slid shut behind him with a soft mechanical hiss. Silence followed. For the first time since the black ship attack, no alarms blared. No voices spoke his name. No orders waited to be followed. Wyatt stood still, breathing slowly, as if the room itself might vanish if he moved too quickly. This space was real, a private room. A proper bed. A desk that didn't shake under his hands. It wasn't a luxury by noble standards, but to a commoner who had spent years sleeping beside humming engines and recycled air vents, it was unreal. He removed his gloves carefully and set them down. Lieutenant. The word echoed uncomfortably in his mind. He had worn ranks before, temporary titles. Bureaucratic labels that meant little beyond pay adjustments and duty rotations. This was different. This rank wasn't given because he fit a form. It was given because someone powerful chose him. And that frightened him more than any hostile ship ever had. Wyatt sat on the edge of the bed and let himself think. The prince's eyes steady, unafraid. Redford's words measured, deliberate. The silent looks from the other officers on the bridge, curiosity mixed with restrained contempt. A commoner didn't rise like this without consequences. In noble circles, promotions were weapons. He wondered who he had offended simply by surviving. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Wyatt Staples, the ship's AI spoke. You are scheduled for induction briefing and uniform issuance in 15 minutes. Wyatt exhaled slowly. No time to hesitate. The officer deck was quieter than the rest of the ship, but the tension was sharper. Wyatt felt eyes follow him as he walked, some respectful, some dismissive, some calculating. He didn't miss it. Commoners learned early how to read fear without being taught. When he entered the briefing chamber, Commander Redford stood near the halotable, hands clasped behind his back. The image of the principality shimmered in the air between them, systems color coded by allegiance. Redford turned. Sit, he said. Wyatt obeyed. What I am about to tell you, Redford continued, is not official doctrine. It will never be written down. But you need to understand it if you intend to survive. The map shifted. Red territories expanded slowly across the projection. Duke Draw's coup has fractured more than the royal family, Redford said. It has exposed fear, ambition, and silence. What about the council? Wyatt asked carefully. Redford smiled humorlessly. The council follows power, he replied. And power is undecided. The map zoomed in again toward the outer systems. Poorer regions. Trade routes monitored only on paper. The prince cannot afford a full civil war, Redford said. But he also cannot afford hesitation. Every house that commits strengthens a side. Every house that waits becomes a liability. Wyatt finally understood then. The prince wasn't gathering fleets yet. He was gathering symbols. And me? Wyatt asked quietly. Redford met his eyes. You are proof, he said. Proof that loyalty exists beyond bloodlines. Proof that duty isn't exclusive to noble birth. Wyatt felt the weight settle deeper than before. I didn't ask for this. No, Redford agreed. But history rarely asks permission. Later, back on the bridge, activity had intensified. Navigation officers plotted routes that avoided loyalist choke points. Intelligence teams worked with incomplete data, filling gaps with educated risk. The prince stood at the center once more. This time, when Wyatt stepped forward, no one ignored him. Lieutenant Wyatt, the prince said, gesturing him closer. You've seen the map. Wyatt nodded. There is a path we must take, the prince continued. One that avoids open confrontation but brings us closer to allies who still hesitate. Wyatt studied the projection. Then he spoke. There's a system most nobles ignore, he said. Because it's poor, unstable, and unofficially inconvenient. Redford glanced at him sharply. The Gintrax corridor, Wyatt continued. On record, it's monitored. In reality, it's understaffed and corrupt. Everyone on the fringe knows how to pass through it. Silence followed. The prince smiled faintly. A commoner's route, he said. The only kind that still works, Wyatt replied. After a moment, the prince nodded. We proceed. As the meeting ended, Wyatt felt something shift within him. He was no longer a bystander. No longer a transport pilot swept along by orders. He was now a piece on the board. Not powerful. Not protected, but visible. As the ship prepared to jump again, Wyatt stood at the viewport, watching the stars stretch once more. The principality was heading toward war. And whether he liked it or not, he had just sworn himself to its future.